As we are awaiting our fellow panelists online, I think we can start off here in the room. And what I would want us to do, and we're starting with you, Jeanette, is introduce yourself. Where do you work? What do you focus upon? And what is top of mind for you right now in terms of the state of AI in the Nordics and Europe? So I'll start off with you.
Thank you. Jeanette Nilsson. I work at RISE, the Research Institute of Sweden, and I'm working as an AI ecosystem expert. And what I do there is connecting the ecosystem of AI users in Sweden with the infrastructure, with experts, so that and also trying to demystify AI so we can use the benefits more instead of having fears or having maybe hopes that will not be able to fulfill. And also working a lot on the European context. And top of my mind right now is that I really like the intro today of how to start using and thinking of the practice and focusing on the end user. And one of the things I often say is that I really want to have biased data so that we can actually think about the values that we want to be strengthened by using AI.
Thank you, Jeanette. Mikael?
Yes, it's lovely to be here today in beautiful Stockholm. I'm Mikael Jensen, and I'm the director of D-Seal, or D-mærket in Danish, which is the first labeling program in the world that basically covers IT security and responsible data use, including AI. We launched it in 2023, so it's a couple of years now that we've been out in the world. And my focus is very much on driving data ethics and responsible business practices and accountability. And I think it's amazing that we here in the Nordics, and if we also include the Baltic countries, I think we are 35 million people altogether, and the 10th largest economy in the world. And basically, if we choose to do so, we can be the place where trustworthy AI is actually flourishing. And that's what I'm really engaged in at the moment.
Great. Thank you, Mikael. Heather?
Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here. My name is Heather Broomfield. I'm the director of the AI Lab, the recently established AI Lab in the National Digitalisation of Norway. DigDir, I will call it from now on. I've many years of experience working with data governance, data sharing, policy level, and digitalisation. I'm also just actually back, only a few months back, from taking a PhD on AI in the public sector and AI governance. So it's really, where my heart is. So in the AI Lab, we're working very much in the public sector, not just for the Digitalisation Agency, but also the rest of the public sector, to do innovative and safe artificial intelligence. That's really what we're about in the AI Lab. And I think that's really what's top of my mind as well in terms of what are we going to do with artificial intelligence? How do we get that balance, exactly as you say, between innovative and safe use? And I also think we also have to, what a time to be alive, the challenges we have, the opportunities we have, how lucky we are to be working and how privileged we are to be working in this area at the moment.
Great. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Heather. Yeah. And we're lucky enough to also have two participants online, and we'll try out and hopefully get well connected with them. And we'll start off with Kai Zenner. Happy to have you here. So I'll let you introduce yourself, what you're focused on right now, and what's top of mind for you.
Yes, and first of all, many thanks for the invitation, and sorry that I could not make it in person. I'm at the moment in Washington. And about me, I am actually one of those people responsible for the European AI Act. Was working for many years in the European Parliament on drafting it and then adopting it. And I would say we are right now really on a crossroad because when I personally, together with Axel Voss, my boss, started the AI journey, it was really one of those few fields where there was a lot of international cooperation, increased OECD work, Council of Europe, United Nations, and so on. But because of the difficult geopolitical situation, let's frame it like that, times have really changed, and we see this transformation from very close international cooperation and alignment to very much unclarity. It begins really with details like risk management assessment or something like that. And the AI, and this is my final point, is now a little bit of a mixed bag. We are really at the moment on our own. The law is not super clear, but gives us as Europe and, for example, the Nordics, I think a lot of opportunities to really shape also internationally where the road is heading.
Thanks a lot, Kai. And then finally, we have Iida.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you're hearing me great and technology is working. My name is Iida Lähdemäki. I'm the CEO of AI Finland. Thanks for having me, and apologies for not being able to be present in Stockholm. Sometimes you need to listen to doctor's orders. But from Helsinki, a couple of words of AI Finland, who we are. We're Finland's only cross-sectoral business network fully focusing on accelerating the development, application and adoption of AI in the Finnish businesses and society. We have more than 200 organizations participating in our work, events and initiatives to share learnings, best practices and co-innovate around AI. And in my daily work, I lead and facilitate various working groups around topical AI-related themes with companies. We talk about competence development, AI regulation, healthcare. And as AI Finland is one of the counterparts in the new Nordic Baltic AI Center and in preparing that, I'm also very much focused on accelerating the Nordic collaboration around AI. As my fellow panelists stated, this is a significant opportunity for us to really join our forces even more effectively to make sure that through that collaboration we can speed up the development here in a safe way. Goes without saying.
Great. Thanks a lot, Iida. Very appreciate it. So we have a really amazing panel here. So what we'll do for the next 40 minutes is cover a lot of topics to see that can we make this as interesting as possible, and then we'll hopefully do so. So I want to start off with a topic of the maturity of AI and ecosystems in the EU and Nordics, and seeing how those are compared to China or the US, and to see how can the Nordics really do their best in terms of amplifying their strength. And I would want to kind of start off with you, Jeanette, because you have a lot of engagements and touch points across the EU, and kind of what is your take on it, on the topic?
I think that, as several has also stated, that the Nordics could have a really strong position. I was working as a lobbyist in EU when the Baltic became a partner, and I was previously working some with the Mediterranean, and they said, okay, now the shift is going from south to north because now the Nordics and the Baltics are now members, but it hasn't happened yet. And I think now is a good time for us to actually take a more of a leader's position in Europe. I mean, we have similar kind of values, and also the kind of public administration, everything is kind of similar. We have also the Nordic Council. We have a lot of structures that we can build on, and we are all early adopters on digital infrastructure. So I'm thinking that, and I know that in the kind of negotiations that we have in the European Union, Nordics are already talking, the governments are working and talking together to strengthen also the Nordic initiatives. And I'm thinking that since we both have, if we're talking about infrastructure, we have the climate, we have energy, we have knowledge, and we have also skilled people. So I'm thinking it's also a responsibility for us in the Nordics to be leaders in this. And I think that we could really, we should do even more. So it's great to hear all the initiatives, and I think we should even do more initiatives in this on regional basis as well.
Thanks a lot, Jeanette. A comment from you, Iida, on the topic of AI maturity and kind of what we in the Nordics can do more.
Definitely, yeah, an excellent question. And when we compare the maturity of Europe or Nordics to the United States or China, let's be honest. Of course, the commercialization in the US has been way more rapid than it has been here in Europe. Or when we talk about China, the strong state-led investment is something that we haven't seen, at least as early as it has been visible in other parts of the world. Europe is picking up the speed, and that's good news, that's great news. And as said, we have some unique strengths here. And I see, for example, the regulation as one of those strengths, for sure. Of course, we see some challenges with that as well, but we have the rules that we can then start building on. When it comes to the Nordics, I think that many of the key points were mentioned already. So we are ethical and sustainable by default, high trust society, digital public infrastructure, and for example, our public-private academic collaboration that we are strong in, they're all good foundations to start building on. And then the question is, okay, so how do we start building on them? And that's definitely something we're going to discuss more during the coming minutes.
Thanks a lot, Heather. And I think kind of a topic that kind of is kind of, as you're touching upon, Heather, is in terms of how do one manage this race, this arms race of AI, if one would call it, and how do we balance the drive between driving for fast innovation and development of technology, drive for rapid adoption of it, and to see at the same time having a good balance of the ethical guardrails that uphold human rights, safety, and societal values. And here I would be happy to hear, and we can start off with you, Kai, on your thoughts on kind of how to balance it in this arms race. And it's great to having you all in person in Washington, D.C., being able to comment on this one. And where do you see, kind of both from a European perspective, but also what we can bring with us in the Nordics on this topic?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So we in the parliament or in Brussels in general had, of course, this discussion from the very beginning. And I would say, even though I am not the biggest fan of the European AI Act's final version, that we kind of strike there a nice balance and really created a more future-oriented law that is much more flexible in a way that it can be adjusted. So if you think, for example, about the GDPR that was adopted in 2016, became applicable in 2018, and already in 2018, many parts of the GDPR were kind of outdated. Certain principles in Article 5 were even during the discussions maybe not fully applicable to all different technologies anymore, and so on. In the AI Act, because of instruments like delegated acts, implementing acts, because of the strong emphasis on international standardization, guidelines, and so on, there are really numerous ways of constantly adjusting the text once we are realizing that certain things might not work anymore. And here comes a second point into play that is also rather unique if you look around, especially when it comes to digital regulation from Brussels. We forced the Commission to talk with other people, with the real experts. Something that the Commission normally doesn't like very much, but institutionally we put things in the AI Act such as these scientific panel, there will be a scientific lead advisor, an advisory forum, but as I said, of course, also by the strong focus on standardization, Sensenelec, and so on, industry, but also civil society, academia, have a lot of possibilities to chip in, to warn the regulator or the enforcer in Brussels, in the capitals, about certain developments or hints that there are new opportunities that we should leverage, and so on and so on. So if everything works out, and as I indicated, there are many risks. One of them is, of course, that our AI governance ecosystem is underfunded, that we maybe lack the talent also necessary for a well-functioning governance. But in the end, if everything works, I really feel that what we were talking already about, our European way to do AI will really evolve quickly over the time. And with that, we indeed have the chance to build up something unique here that is, compared to other areas of the world, more secure, maybe more sustainable, more trustworthy, and so on. So it could become, in the end, really a competitive edge for Europe. And maybe now the last, really last sentence, referring to your Washington point, my big hope, and this is why I'm here, is of course that even though there are now certain problems between partners, that maybe in a few months we are going back to this close cooperation that we had in before. Because even though I'm a strong supporter of a European way to digital or to AI, we should not do it completely on our own. So aligning our approaches, again, for example, when it's about risk management, when it's about notifications, when accidents are there or something similar, this should happen, because otherwise even our companies would have a compliance chaos if they want to be active internationally.
Thanks a lot, Kai. And we'll also be interested to know from you, Heather, kind of where do you see how to find a good balance between rapid adoption and being able to have relevant ethical guardrails?
I think I want to start really by saying, like, the race metaphor, you know, in itself is misguided, you know. Where's the finish line? It's like this imaginary finish line. Is there going to be a winner someday and losers another day? So I think instead we need direction, instead of, you know, this constant kind of race for speed. So we need direction. I think I'm very much agreeing with what Kai is saying. We have direction now. We have direction in Europe. We have, you know, in the Nordics, we have the rules of the game as well. This is what the AI Act gives us. It gives us a chance, in a sense, to catch up too, right? But we can't forget to play the game. Sometimes we get a bit so hung up in the regulation that we forget to play the game. So we need to be doing that and following that. It's very important to apply ethics by design from the start, and that's also a very, very important point. And, you know, Kai mentioned talking to people, that the European Commission talked to people. We need to remember in our countries to talk to our citizens as well, right? We need to remember to get input from our citizens in this, to make sure that we're balancing all the time and know that we're doing this, you know, for human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. What I would also recommend, and it's something I come back to again and again and again, is the importance of multidisciplinary approach, multidisciplinary teams. If we only have lawyers and technologists in the room, we're doing something wrong. We need ethical experts. When we're doing this in the public administration, for example, we need public administration experts. We are changing the organization potentially, so we need organizational change experts as well. So we need a vast multidisciplinary teams, and we need to be making sure we're doing that. So I think I'll hand over now.
Thanks a lot, Heather. Yeah. And here I would want us to kind of move into a topic that is very close to heart for you, Mikael. And that is, and specifically because I know that you've been doing amazing work in Denmark on the topic of digital ethics. And the thought that I would want you to share your thoughts on is that how can we proactively identify and mitigate bias across gender, culture, and socio-economic lines. So what we're doing in the Nordics and the EU becomes a standard in terms of fairness, transparency, and inclusivity.
Yeah, I think the EU AI Act is also building on the EU high-level expert group and also the basic principles, the European Charter, basically the basic rights. But the EU AI Act is only, you could say, catering to basically high-risk use cases. And if we look at the AI applications out there, maybe, I don't know, 80% are non-high risk. So what do we do with all those use cases? And what we have tried to do in Denmark is make a code of conduct, you could say, that applies to use cases that are not high risk. And I think we have done it in Denmark now, but it could be really fantastic if we, on a Nordic and Baltic kind of way, could agree on making a code of conduct on non-high risk AI. And it's actually a possibility in the current EU AI Act. I think it's Article 95 in the EU AI Act. I think it was 69 in the proposal, but 95 now, where it's actually possible for countries or entities to make this codes of conduct. And I think it could be great that if we thought about trustworthy AI, we also thought about Nordics and having a code of conduct that was across the Nordic countries and the Baltics could be a great stepping stone.
So maybe the Nordic AI Center can kind of move on that one.
Yeah, and you and I were part of the expert group on the Nordic innovation, and one of the proposals were making this Nordic-Baltic strategy and a hub for that. And now it actually came into force here in April. I think they got 5 million in funding a year. I mean, that's a start. It's nice to be a part of an expert group and actually see that something actionable comes out of it. But I think we have a great opportunity not just to think strategy in each of the local Nordic countries, but kind of combine our efforts and synergies. I'm part of the Danish Data Ethical Council, and we are looking into AI use cases in the health sector. And what we can see now is that it's very early days. They don't have exactly rules or guidelines how to work with data ethics. It's not that they don't want to do it, but it's not really happening. And it's kind of standalone use cases or products that are being made. I think we, in the Nordic, again, when we talk about health data and the way we do health, we are very much also aligned on values and stuff like that. So I think that's also an area where we definitely could work together on a Nordic-Baltic area.
Thanks, Mikael. Jeanette?
I was provocative in my presentation and said that I like biased data, and I would like to then say what I mean with that. Because sometimes when we are talking about data, it feels like everyone, when we are in the Nordics, we want to have equality. We want to have medical history for women because it differs from men. We know that most data that exists about people are on men. So if we say that we want to have a non-biased data, what do we mean by that? I mean, most people don't want women to have voting rights. So if you just look at data points, then women will not have voting rights. So that's what I mean when we're talking about biased data. I think it's really important to talk about what are the values that we want to enhance, to actually make that is a bottom line, and talk more about value-driven AI and in ethics. So I'm thinking, for me, that I always provoke people with saying I want to have biased data, and then people want to talk about it because they think then it's discrimination and so on. But I think this is really important, and I really emphasize the importance of what we are doing in Europe, because I think the benefit that we have from other countries is that we are used to diversity. I mean, if you are in European Union, you have to kind of negotiate and compromise and see that every culture is valuable, not just one culture. So I think that will be, in the long end, the kind of winning concept.
Thanks
If I can chip in maybe very shortly?
Please,
Yeah,
please, Kai.
perfect. I was not sure if it's working technologically.
It does, it works.
Perfect. No, I just want to support fully what my two co-panelists were saying before, and also underline, indeed, there is in Article 95 the possibility of national or regional code of practices, but also when it comes to regulatory sandboxes, both co-legislators were having in mind from the very beginning that there are different clusters in Europe in the end, that, for example, a city or a region like Frankfurt is focusing on AI and finance and maybe data centers, that some countries that are doing a lot on B2C are focusing then on consumers, how AI is affecting consumers, and so on and so on. So this national or regional specialization and doing something different or focusing on different things is really one of those core ideas in the AI Act. And we really hope that it's playing out like that. And one possibility that we saw from the beginning is actually to build on top of the already existing digital innovation hubs, because there you see already a lot of different clusters all over Europe.
Thanks a lot, Kai. Heather?
Yeah, and I think I just want to pick up on that one in particular, and we spoke about, you've mentioned this as well. I mean, if we think about AI and public services, look at the data that we have in the public sector in the Nordics, the trust we have, the trust in government we have. This could really be a specialisation as well, and of course looking at codes of conduct as well. And not least, we can do joint regulatory sandboxes. There's nothing against that either. So there's so much potential here to specialise.
And I have just one more thing about the public sector, because public sector is really dominant in the Nordics, and they have a huge power, basically. And if you also, as a public sector, use that procurement power, that you actually ask for trustworthy AI services, then it's built in. It's something that companies, organizations are gonna do. It's going to be a carrot, and then that can also drive adoption, specific for the trustworthy part of it. So I think we have a unique positioning in the Nordics also to utilize the public sector as a buying force, procurement.
Great, thanks a lot, Mikael. And that brings us to a topic that we touched upon before briefly. It has been mentioned in a couple of sessions throughout today. And that's kind of the topic of the EU AI Act. And I think we have kind of heard the presentations, we have seen the pyramid over the last couple of years. And we see the demands for organizations on a very high level. But I would want us kind of to maybe double click and see, okay, what specifically does organizations in the Nordics and the EU need to do today? In terms of governance, documentations, and technical controls. Not waiting for August 2026, possibly, but actually start acting on today. And I'll give the space for you, Kai, to start off, and then for you, Iida, to take secondly.
Yeah, thanks, Giovanni. And you said already the right thing. I guess especially we Germans that are still traumatized from GDPR compliance problems, because in 2018 we had those scenarios that school classes were not taking pictures anymore and so on, all of because of GDPR. Many false claims also flying around. I think here, as you indicated, we see already a big difference, that much more companies are aware that something is coming, that they need to prepare, and that they shouldn't wait until autumn 26 or even autumn 27 for sectorial AI applications, but really should already start now. What they are doing, it's always going back to the first question, is what are we actually using internally that is classifying as AI? And this sounds very simple, but it's a super difficult question because of this vague AI definition that unfortunately we as co-legislators took. There is now new guidelines out from the European Commission. In February they were presented. They are helping probably a little bit, but still not sufficiently, I would say. So again, going back to that point, I think every company really needs to investigate quite a lot what in the end they have, what is qualifying as AI in those gray areas. And this is the first time that I'm saying it now. They will need to go to the national competent authorities, to the European Commission to double check. I would not waste a lot of money for law firms because at the moment no one knows, not even the regulator have a clear answer. So going back to this point that I made earlier, it's really a joint learning process probably over the next 2 years between public sector and private sector. And they need to figure out how to solve this question, what is AI? Following up on that, they also need to clarify what means a substantial modification, meaning when do I need to become, for example, a provider of a general purpose AI model or a system or high-risk AI system. If I buy an AI system from another company, could it happen that I suddenly become provider and need to fulfill everything from the AI Act? What does it mean in Article 11 to provide technical documentation, and so on and so on? So hundreds of open questions. But as I said, the best way is to try to solve everything internally first, then to double check with partners, trade associations or networks or other forms of cooperation are probably really good places to check with entities that are in a similar situation than you. But it's always coming back to this point that I made already. If you are not sure, use all the possibilities that we, the co-legislators, gave you in terms of reaching out to the authorities and try to get a final answer from them. If they cannot answer you, it means actually that you are probably in a good position because there will be no fine if you did everything you were able to do, and then you even ask the regulator if this is okay and they cannot tell you something, then you are fine. And this, I think many companies are still not 100% aware that it's really this new form of proactive cooperative law that has a lot of vagueness but gives companies also a lot of control.
Thanks a lot, Kai. And for you, Iida?
Oi.
Your voice does not come through properly. If you turn off the mic and turn it on again, let's see if it works. No, not yet. So let's see if we can get support from our technical team. So if
I didn't change anything.
No.
No, still nothing.
So let's wait and see if it kind of gets better, and I'll have Mikael have a comment.
Yeah, I have just a comment again because Kai, I mean the EU AI Act is still primarily for the high risk, and I don't know the percentage. Maybe you know it better than I do. But it's the majority of AI use cases in Europe currently are non-high risk, and then they basically are not going to be compliant to the AI Act regulation. But one thing you could fear is that that people or companies that might be in scope for the high risk, that they are also then pushing those high-risk requirements down in the supply chain to the suppliers. that then will get the high risk indirectly requirements, and that's not good. If many of the smaller SMEs actually delivering low to medium risk AI use cases are confronted with the high risk requirements, of course. And that's where, again, maybe a code of conduct done in a European, in a Nordic way could be a test for the medium to low risk use cases, and kind of create a common standard for those organizations.
Across the different risk tiers. Thanks a lot, Mikael. We'll look again and see if your audio comes through well, Iida.
Another try. Any better?
All good. All good.
Perfect. Good. So what I started to say is that the key message we want to stress to companies we talk to about AI Act is that it's not a reason not to utilize AI in your business. Because sometimes what we hear from companies is that one of the key challenges for us in our AI journey is the regulation. But actually, that's somewhat lazy, because come to really think of it and diving deeper into it, as Mikael already said, majority of the use cases for companies actually are not in the high risk category. So that's something that is very crucial to remember. Then when about the question of how to prepare, I would say that many of those preparations that a company can take already now are something that is very, let's say, crucial and relevant, not only from the regulatory perspective, but overall AI development perspective, in continuous improvement, effective adoption perspective. So things like ensuring accountability, or drafting and updating certain internal policies, or establishing documentation, or having certain risk classification processes, ensuring training. All of these are extremely relevant from EU AI Act's perspective, but also from the broader AI development perspective. So these two go very much hand in hand. Another thing to stress here is that we need to collaborate to share and find out best practices, because no one knows yet, but the companies are already doing things. So why not tell to your colleagues in other companies, hey, this is the documentation we are preparing. Is this something you are doing as well, or have you found better ways? Because these are not sort of sensitive areas from competition perspective, for example. So let's collaborate there. Another message to conclude with is the encouragement to participate actively in giving feedback whenever possible, whether it's to the national regulators or to the trade associations, to organizations that support the development, because that way these kind of let's say the policies, the guidelines can be improved, because AI Act is not there to prevent business. That's I would say one key thing.
But rather the opposite. So thanks a lot, Iida. And here I kind of, as we're talking about business, I would want us to kind of steer the conversation towards the heavy investments that are done on EU level in terms of AI research, infrastructure, AI factories, and to see how these are them building a lot of the foundation of AI development across Europe. And here I would want to turn my attention to you, Heather, for a comment in terms of how can the Nordic countries in the best way tap into these programs and to be able to have joint Nordic initiatives to address the region's specific needs. So we'll start off with you and then we'll take it on.
Yeah, I think this is also an example of, the EU does not just regulate, it also innovates. There are a lot of programs, there are a lot of things coming down the tracks now from Europe that we can benefit from. It's the AI factories, the TEFs, of course, are already around, the EDIs that Kai has mentioned. We're going to get the regulatory sandboxes. The AI continent plan, of course, is full of these skills academies and things. So there is so much actually coming down the tracks, and it's up to us to actually take advantage of them. And of course, on top of this, we've got Horizon and we have Digital Europe. And, you know, in terms of what the Nordics can do, we can join together, we can join forces, we can have Nordic consortia, for example, we can work together on these. And of course, if we concentrate, for example, on AI in the public sector, we can apply for these fundings together and work on these projects together. So I think that's a very good way of approaching this. I think we also need to kind of be even better as well at doing kind of a common voice, working together. I mean, you were already in on that, Jeanette. You know, there's policies and strategies to influence in Europe as well and have this Nordic voice. Now, of course, as Norway is not an EU member, so of course this is even more important for us, but I think it's important for all the Nordics alone together to be a really strong voice here. So not just in terms of participation, but what's coming down the tracks. So, for example, there's a consultation now, as we all know, for the Apply AI strategy, so we can be part of that as well and go in on that together. So I think that there's a lot we can be doing, a lot more we can be doing in terms of collaboration here.
Thank you, Heather. A comment from you, Iida?
Absolutely, I fully agree with everything that has been said. I think that really, and this is something we're doing with the Nordic Baltic Center as we now prepare the operations for that. So really coordinating the Nordic strengths to lead programs on areas such as green AI or health tech that we just discussed being one of the potential, let's say, competitive advantages for the Nordic region. Also building this AI hub for the Nordics to pool investments, to pool data sets, to build shared AI infrastructure, and by that fostering the co-innovation. Also, I think one area definitely important, joint talent development and talent attraction. We all win if we succeed in attracting talent to the Nordic region. However, whether it would come to Finland or Norway or Sweden, we all win through that. So really seeing the Nordics and the Baltics as a more joint area, because we need that bigger 30 million inhabitant region to really be competitive in this race, if one wants to call that way.
Thanks a lot, Iida. And we're actually soon closing up on time for this panel discussion, and I would want us to take one round around the table to share for a brief minute kind of what are the most important things that you would want to leave for organizations to take on, to act on today. Whether that is in terms of investments or in terms of changing within the organization, or to focusing to be able to have preparedness for AI compliance or AI standards. And I know that you need to leave a bit earlier, Kai, as you have you have impending meetings. So I'll let you start off, and when you've done so, you're happy to leave. So start off, please.
Okay, perfect. Much appreciated. Yeah, basically, I will go back to what I said already. I do believe that our European way to do AI will only be possible if we really work all together, if we are having this holistic AI governance ecosystem, which is also distributing AI talents that we have, not only sending them to a few large companies, but enabling also public authorities to get a deep learning expert, because if the authorities do not know how AI is functioning, then they cannot really talk with AI firms and vice versa, and so on and so on. So it's really all about now working together in creating this sufficiently working AI governance field. And secondly, not only building it up, but also heavily engaging there. And we talked already a lot about things that you can do, from sharing best practice to helping other companies to find or help also yourself to find a joint solution, to help public authorities to better understand certain challenges, and so on.
Thanks a lot, Kai, and thank you for contributing to this panel. And we'll continue here in the room. So, Jeanette, what would you leave off as kind of a final note?
I think that the geopolitical kind of situation has changed a lot. And in this, the Nordic countries has a really central role, as we have a lot of natural resources, but we also have possibilities to do a lot of green industry that we know is really important, and using AI to enhance that, and also using the structures that we have been working for at least 50 years to see how we can work together and even strengthen that. I think that is the most crucial thing to do, to see that it is a new situation, so we need to use the strength that we have from before to actually make it even better to the future.
Thanks a lot, Jeanette. Mikael?
Yeah, I think we are. It's very early days. Still working with data ethics and trustworthy AI. So we need to join forces and work together. I think the Nordics is a perfect place. Made in the Nordics or made in Europe sounds good to me. So that's one thing. I think we should. When we talk about AI, it's so much about high-risk use cases, but there are so many AI applications that can be done that is not high risk, and we also need to have some guidance to how to work with non-high-risk use cases, and there the codes of conduct, maybe building on a DSeal concept as we had in Denmark, could be one way forward for the Nordics.
Thanks, Heather?
Yeah, I think trust, our values, ethics, they're a competitive advantage. Remember that in this race or whatever we're in now. It's a huge advantage for us. And I mean, we're in the home of transparency and openness here. You know, the Freedom of Information Act came from Sweden. That's where we are. That's what the Nordics are about. And let's build on that and build on that together. I think that's really my main point. And of course, always come back to multidisciplinarity. If you only have lawyers and technologists in your team, that's not enough. We need to be multidisciplinary.
Thanks, Heather. And then finally, a word from you, Iida.
Great points from my fellow panelists, and perhaps to round up. So, as said, we have a solid foundation. We have that high trust society. We have digital governments. We have so many strengths here that let's now be bold in building on those strengths. Let's have the courage to think big, to invest, and believe that this is something that will foster our success going forward. And Nordics is a great place to collaborate on this. So we definitely have the potential in place.
Thanks a lot, Iida. And with that, we're coming to the end of the line of this panel discussion. What I've learned kind of being able to listen to you and your good points is that there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot of the things that organizations can act on today. It's not only about driving technology as an isolated topic, but bringing both functions together across the organizations, collaborating where it makes sense across the Nordics and the EU, and seeing that we have a lot of good opportunities to build on being a part of a Nordic ecosystem. And it's mainly to see that how can organizations actively collaborate? How can we actively take choices in terms of, for instance, designing, having set our ambitions of having procurement done in a way that steers buying, that we actively gauge not only for the high-risk use cases, but create practices, processes, and systems for all AI systems, that we can tap into the investments that are ongoing in the EU and take benefit from them. And that we can also see that how we can proactively see that we establish processes to manage the data we have, no matter how biased it is, and to see kind of how we can progress it. What I also reflect upon is that we had a similar type of dialogue and panel last year with other panelists, and you did a great work also in that position. Is that last year it was a lot more skepticism, I would say, at that time, and I think what we've kind of seen over the past year is that that there's a lot of opportunity ahead. And I think it's mainly about creating the necessary actions to kind of set that in motion rather than be afraid of it and kind of hinder from it. So thanks a lot for your time, and thank my fellow panelists for the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.